Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
Some read self-help books. Others use meditation. At New Balance, it's believed that peace can be found with a run. The lessons learned while running your race are a blueprint for overcoming obstacles and achieving balance in life. Go beyond the run at newbalance.com.
Hey, and welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast, an adulting advice podcast production. I'm Danny Sheriff, and this is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. Let's dive in. And guys, please remember that I am not a doctor and nothing on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always seek the advice of your physician. Hey ladies, I am pumped to be delivering this episode to you today. I talk with Holly Dunn and it's a really refreshing chat where we dive deeper into what's actually happening in our body and our brain when we have HA. She has a really refreshing take on the subject, a lovely voice to listen to. And in this show, we just talk about how HA is more than just eating more and exercising less. There's more nuance to it. There's more individualization often. So I really think you're going to enjoy it. Before we dive in, I wanted to let you guys know about the fact that myself and my partner in crime here at the HA Society, Ashley, have started to take on more HA coaching clients. So this looks like getting on a 15-minute call with me, totally free, where we chat about your situation and I pair you with either Ashley or myself based on your situation. And we actually don't do nutrition, looking at labs, that kind of thing. What we do is work in conjunction with the protocol that you know is right for you. So potentially we'll help you come up with that protocol. So often we all already know what that looks like. It's, it does have a lot to do with working through the mindset struggles of eating more food, of resting more. And a lot of it is kind of like life coaching. A lot of what Ashley and I do with you is get together on a weekly calls and figure out, what is it that got us in this situation in the first place? Yes, you're doing all of the work to get your period back. And yes, we'll definitely go through together ways to keep moving forward with those protocols. But we're also going to make sure that when you get on the other side of your HA that you keep it that way. So we look at all kinds of things like your relationship, your work, your stress management. We look at, helping you to get back the passions and the love and the life that you kind of have been pushing away from or pulling away from during this time of having HA. So I would love to get on a 15-minute call with you and just see if this is a fit. There is no pressure at all. And then we can start the process. Coaching with us is only $100 a month for 4 formal check-ins and unlimited support between calls. That's like $25 a week, which is really great because one-on-one support is super important. It's so important, especially if you don't have a strong support network. But even if you do, it's just so beneficial to have someone like Ashley or myself who you can connect with. And also you get access to the HA Society as a part of your membership. And the HA Society does only open once a month, but if you join coaching, you get access straight away. And that means you get, early access to the podcast episodes, the message board with all of the other women that are in our group and the other women that are getting coaching. And that's where you can chat with us throughout in between your one-on-one check-in calls. So I think it's a really great opportunity. And if it doesn't end up being for you after we get on that 15-minute call, I'll actually have a better suited for you practitioner to recommend. Like maybe you do need to be working with a registered dietitian at this stage, or maybe a nutritional therapy practitioner. So it's actually a bit of a win-win for everyone because by you getting on this call, I'll either be able to help pair you with, one of the coaches and you can work with us, which is really great. Or I can recommend you to one of the coaches or the other practitioners that I have in my network. And I've worked really hard to build a network of practitioners that I trust all over the world, that can work with people all over the world. So if you're even just trying to figure out who you want to work with, book a call with me. Either go to the link in the show notes and you can book a call with me, or go to coaching.thehasociety.com, and there you can also you can get the link to book and schedule that call with me, and we'll go from there. Let's figure out what your next steps need to be. Hey everyone, welcome back to the HA, the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I'm here today with Holly Dunn from across the pond. Really excited to chat with her today. Just before the call, we had a quick overview about what we're going to talk about. Sounds really exciting. You guys are going to love it. I'm going to pass off to Holly to introduce herself, what she does, and then we're going to get into it. Hey, Holly.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Danny. I am sitting here in raining London. I mean, you couldn't get a better stereotype. But no, it's so amazing to be here. And so my name's Holly, and I'm a registered nutritional therapist specializing in women's hormonal health, particularly stress and stress-related conditions, with HA being, could be defined as the ultimate stress condition for women, from women's health. And I have an online clinic, a virtual clinic, don't we all these days, where I work with women privately over a period of time to help them balance their hormones and regain their energy and reduce stress and really just reach their health goals, their life goals, without burning out. Because as women, we do burn out. I see this so much today. So I'm registered in the UK, obviously, with the British Association for Nutrition and Lifestyle Medicine, which is regulated by the Complementary and Natural Healthcare Council in the UK, which is a bit of a mouthful. And I previously had trained as a yoga instructor as well. And that's kind of an interesting one, because I do tend to find with HA clients, I do always bring in an element of breathing techniques, because it's so important when we're trying to calm down the nervous system, calm down the sort of stress response. And yeah, so I work with women with irregular cycles, HA, low energy, PMS, stress, anxiety, thyroid issues, digestive issues. It does vary, but as this is I take a very holistic approach. Often, I'm not dealing with one thing. As nutritional therapy practitioners, we're dealing with the whole person, and that's an interwoven sequence of events and health conditions. Often, kind of, roll into one beautiful picture that we have to kind of unravel and find out what's going on.
Consistently with the practitioners we talk to, it's like it's about painting a huge picture.
Absolutely.
Really going on. And please correct me if I am so wrong, but what I'm feeling or hearing from this, and from my experience talking to some other practitioners as well, is that when it comes to dealing with HA, you guys aren't necessarily all on board with this concept of just like, oh, all that's wrong with you is this energy deficit where you need to like sit on the couch and eat lots of food. It's a little more nuanced than that, and there's more interest in like testing and, like you were saying, the breath work and calming the central nervous system. And I want to hear more about that. If I'm wrong, you're like, no, it's totally just about like chilling out.
It really isn't. And it's so much more than, HA is so much more than, stopping exercise and increasing calories, right? It's so much more nuanced than that. Oh God, where to start with this one? Why don't we talk about, stress. Oh, what causes HA? Okay, so I see HA very much as, yes, energy deficits in 95% of cases plays a huge role, but it's a condition of stress, and we kind of really need to define that for the individual to understand what's going on for them. So I'm probably going to start here with, we'll come back to, I think there are predisposing factors. Okay, so there are predisposing factors that make someone potentially a little bit more susceptible to stress in their life, and we can come back to those if you want. But there are certainly genetic components.
Yes, because I feel like that's me.
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, and I actually found this because when I was working on my recovery sort of some years ago, I discovered that I had a genetic polymorphism, which is basically an abnormality in an enzyme called COMT, it's an enzyme called catechol-methyltransferase. And it's a bit of a mouthful, but this enzyme helps you to break down your catecholamines, which are going to be things like adrenaline and noradrenaline. And it also helps you break down dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter in the brain very associated with addictive type behaviors. So when this enzyme's not working properly, we can kind of overshoot. So when we do produce adrenaline, we can't break it down so easily. So this can negatively impact our stress response. We, certainly if there's a dopamine factor there, we can develop high or too low levels of dopamine. We can kind of be swinging from high to low. And so I certainly had an addiction to running, and that addictive behavior that I experience, and I do see in other clients of mine, is it's potentially, if there is a genetic polymorphism, it's not a cause of this behavior, but it's a susceptibility that we need to be thinking about, and it's something that we're just putting into the puzzle for the individual. So it's just a piece of the jigsaw puzzle for them. It's just a contributing factor that might be sitting there in the background. And then there are other components. So there are potentially in utero factors. So when you're in the womb, so when your mum's carrying you, potentially there are factors there. So we've got some evidence to show that when a mum is really stressed out, that can impact how the baby's nervous system is developing, and actually how the brain develops. So can see that, and we see this actually in long-term stress as well, that certain areas of the brain can get bigger. So the amygdala, which is responsible for anxious thinking, circular thoughts, can actually get bigger. It can get enlarged. And other areas of the brain, like the hippocampus, which is our kind of logical, rational, memory learning side, that can actually decrease in size. So
I love that. I don't know if anyone's seen the Netflix show Explained. Oh, is it Explained? No, it's Babies. It's called Babies.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, it's so good. It explains all these different things about the connection between, children and parents, skin on skin, how breastfeeding works. Yeah. And they talk about how they did tests on, so when a woman has a baby, the amygdala grows, but the father's does not. It stays the same.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But when they did tests on that, and when the mother wasn't around, maybe she left, maybe she passed away and didn't make it, the father's amygdala grew to the same size as the women's, because now he was taking on that responsibility. And just you were talking about it, and I thought of it, and it's just such a cool fact. And people should definitely watch Babies on Netflix.
It sounds fantastic. I think I'm going to have to watch it now. No, but it's really so interesting. So, and there's something else called neural plasticity. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but when we're
like Beyonce talked about it.
Yeah. So when we get, when we start to think in a certain way, and we basically strengthen certain neural pathways in our brain. So, when it's kind of, that's why CBT is so effective, because you kind of unravel the way you're used to thinking. But if we're constantly thinking in a certain way, we're hardwiring the way that we think, so that we always think that way. If that makes sense. I don't know if that does. I'm trying to explain it in a kind of very simplified way, but so you've got kind of these factors, right? These things that, and I love to explain some of this stuff to clients, because it releases you a little bit from, I've done this to myself, and this is hard, and this is my fault, and this is something I've done. And that guilt piece is there every time. And it's really hard for people, and it's not your fault. I think that's so important for women to understand. that, you know, there are other elements to this. And yes, the lifestyle element, the stress, the psychological stress, the exercise, inflammation, there's lots of different things of causes of stress. So, and we kind of have to be careful with how we define what stress is to the body. But all of these factors together, you know, it's a big web of stress. Big web of stress, that's what it is.
Yeah, well, I always think about, and it's kind of what makes it so hard, right, is that stress is stress, whether it's emotional or physical. And so it can just be manifested for so many people in so many different ways, which is why there's a bunch of women listening right now who are like, I never even exercised like that hard, quote unquote, or I never was, you know, super, super lean, which is me, like the loop I'm always in of like, I'm angry because I look normal. But actually, you know, my story was because I was working 7 days a week and then going to the gym every day afterwards. And like, I had to get up at 4 a.m. for my job. And that is kind of what manifested in itself stress. And when you were talking about how you hardwire these neurological pathways, what came to my mind was how, you know, we just work so hard to fit into this mold of like what is a good member of society, or like how a successful woman is portrayed, which is juggling all of these different things at once. And you know, we wake up every day and we like look at our vision board and we say our you know, we do our power poses and like say our mantras, and those are really hardwiring those behaviors into us, and to undo that is a lot of work.
Yeah, you're so right. And you know, the thing is the majority of women out there today are just, you know, they're just working really hard and they're trying to be healthy, they're trying to, you know, be fit and eat well. Actually, you know, a lot of women aren't. Yes, okay, there are a lot of women with HA will be restricting, and they will have that history of potential, you know, eating disorder patterns, which, you know, there is no shame in that in itself. But, you know, also it's just women just trying to do what society is telling us to do, right? Which is to have it all, do it all, don't complain. And that kind of getting up at, you know, 5 a.m., 4 a.m. to do your thing, so you can go and put all hours in at work. You know, sleep loss itself is a factor here. Sleep loss raises cortisol, it impacts our insulin response, it increases inflammation. You know, it's definitely a big factor, and that's definitely one of the key things I'd look at with a client with irregular long cycles or HA is, you know, what's your sleep like? How are you sleeping really? How much sleep are you getting? Is that enough for you? And often it's not. Even when it's, you know, 7 hours, it's often not enough. Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit about how all of those factors come together to create what we call HA? And
so means? Well, HA essentially is HA itself is amenorrhea is lack of a period, right? So hypothalamic amenorrhea is lack of your period, and that is a result of a miscommunication between the hypothalamus and the rest of the body. And the hypothalamus is this master control center that controls everything in the body: temperature, water balance, hormones, and it takes in inputs from the body, and when it feels scared, or if it's under pressure, or it's under too much stress, whatever stress input that is, it will shut down a lot of the processes that it regulates. But one thing it really doesn't do is shut off our stress response, because that's life-saving to us. So we find it's the other systems that go. So the thyroid, so our metabolism slows down, and our reproductive system will definitely get switched off. And that is the body's protective mechanism, putting us into low power mode. I kind of think about it. I always think about it like my phone goes into low power mode when it doesn't have any batteries. Yeah. It's kind of like the same thing happening. And if you have some of these predisposing factors at the background, say you've got a genetic predisposition, which means that your perception, you feel stress more acutely than someone else. When there's a stress input or stimulus in your body, then you're more hardwired to feel that response, or you can't maybe excrete or remove some of those stress hormones as as effectively as somebody else. Then you receive, pressure in your life, whether that's culturally or socially, to exercise and to be in a small body and work all hours of the day and not get as much sleep as you should. These are all things that potentially raise cortisol. We may be fasting for long periods of time, that will raise cortisol. We may develop digestive problems, which will raise inflammation, and that will cause problems, and that will kind of talk to our stress system as well. And there may be other factors in there as well. Low body fat certainly isn't a factor, but when women when we have a little bit of extra fat in our body, that's actually can be quite protective. So it's not a cause, but it could be a potential driver there as well. Low nutrient status, and that's whether or not we're not getting enough macronutrients, energy, and also micronutrients. So all those little vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients that play this, they're tiny, but they play this massive role in helping us to produce energy and helping us to have a normal stress response and do all sorts of fabulous things for our body. And often we just have really raised needs because of the way we're operating in today's modern world. So it's I think it's quite a normal condition for women. And research shows that 50% of women who exercise on a regular basis have irregular cycles, and we don't know how many of those have HA, but certainly I think it's a lot of us, and we need to really be talking about it more and helping women to feel that it's okay to have this, and it's important to fix it, but it's okay that you got here. Let's unravel it.
Yeah, it definitely is okay that women got here. I mean, if you look back at your path,
yeah,
like at least if I look back at my path to it, I don't think there was any way of stopping it, even if I knew that this was a potential cause, because what you're being told is just that doing all of the things is just so much more important than your menstrual health. So there are very few people that I think could have even avoided the path that they're on right now. So there's not much point dwelling on that, and it's just about looking forward. And I really am torn with where to go with you, because I have so many more questions, but I also want to hear your story. So
plenty of time. Plenty of time.
I know. I feel like it would be great to get a background on your experience personally with HA, and then I'm going to get back to my questions about working with people with HA.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I will try and keep this nice and short. So prior to, I know I go off on tangents too, so
no, I mean, go for it. It's so much fun.
Prior to working as a nutritional therapist, I didn't start my career out as a nutritional therapist. I retrained. So I took a number of years out to take a postgraduate nutritional therapy qualification. I originally was working in the royal household in London, and then in the corporate world. So I was actually working closely with executives my whole life in high pressured environments. And then, really, I mean, I say high pressured environments, it was usually the pressure I was putting on myself, really to kind of deliver and to not let anyone down. That's definitely been in my past and my character as well. So I'm a workaholic by nature. And my coping mechanism has really always been to just overfunction and deplete my body. And I very much got into running at uni actually as a way to increase my energy. Actually, I got really high on those endorphins. I just loved it, and I just had to do it every morning. And I still do run, I have to say, but I do it. I don't have HA, so I love it, and it's still good for me. But I would wake up early, work out, chug down a coffee, get to the office, and then I'd be at networking events in the evening, and so I was really just go, and no matter what, and I didn't really have any rhythm. There's no real rhythm to my life. I'd been on the pill, as a lot of us are, for around 10 years, and who knows what impact that was having on my brain chemistry. At the same time, I have some feelings that it really did change my my personality, actually, from about the age of 18. And when I came off it, no surprise, I didn't have a period for nearly 2 years. And I saw a gynecologist. They weren't really that worried about me at the time. They just said, you know, you look pretty athletic. You're not underweight, but you're pretty athletic, and maybe you shouldn't be doing so much exercise, but, you know, just pull it back a bit. But meanwhile, I was kind of doing my own investigation. I'd already started training. I'd already started my postgrad training in nutritional therapy. I trained as a yoga teacher before that. And the lady I saw had actually radically shifted my views on what was going on for me. And it was around this time that I did the genetic testing, and I was then thinking about more, you know, this nutritional therapist I saw really opened my eyes to the raised needs that I had. You know, I was already stressed, so my need for certain nutrients was high. I was exercising, so it was high. I had this genetic polymorphism, which made everything, again, raised, everything kind of upregulated in my body. And I needed a lot of nutrition. I needed a lot of nutrients to get my body back into balance. And I needed a lot of supplements. And a lot of rest and a lot of just time, and it came back. It was fine, and it was definitely a long road, and I'm still very hypersensitive to it, and I'm still very, you know, my body always will be, and I think that's the other important thing, is like that first period you get, it's not the end of the story, it's not the end of the road. You know, we have to always be looking out for this, and, you know, understand our bodies are more sensitive than other people's bodies. Yeah. So that's the story.
When you had to, when you were going through this and you were increasing your nutrient intake, did you also heavily reduce or quit exercise, or were you able to continue being active?
Yeah, I was lucky. I was able to continue to be active. Yeah, I never stopped it entirely. I definitely did pull back on the running and just walk for a period of time. But I might have then just chuck in a cheeky jog now and again. So I never did the all in myself. And my diet was already, you know, I've always been fully invested in nutrition, and my diet was pretty good already. I just needed to eat more. I needed to I really needed the supplements, though. I mean, my body's needs were so great for certain nutrients that I wasn't getting to actually ovulate properly. I needed to eat meat. I wasn't eating enough red meat, so I needed more red meat for my body, more vitamin A. I needed more choline. I needed more iron, so it was those were some of the things for me anyway. But again, very, very different for everyone. So yeah. Oh, I can't hear your question.
I do that every time. I forget.
Oh no, we're disconnected.
Every time. So other people that have been on the podcast that are listening right now are like, oh. So I was saying, I really hear a lot of your story in my own, in the sense of like, I didn't completely have to stop exercise. Yeah. And I also didn't just like throw all of my value that I hold from nutrient dense food out the window in exchange for just calorically high food. And when I worked with an NTP,
Hey, I'm Katie Grossman, a trail and ultra marathon runner sponsored by New Balance. I'm also a creative professional, wife to my life and running partner, Dominic, and a very proud mom of 2 girls. Life has gotten a little crazy, especially after battling postpartum injury and an abdominal tumor. But running is still a huge part of my identity, and it legitimately improves my mental health. I'm working my way back to racing, but for now, I'm still finding peace on the trail. Go be on the run at newbalance.com.
Gym sessions and sweaty summer activities are back, which means more funky smells in your clothes, because sweat leaves behind bacteria that causes those hard-to-remove odors. Clorox fabric sanitizer products are ready to zap the stink out of fabrics in your home by getting rid of 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria. Eliminate odors in every load, or sanitize fabrics between washes with one of our fabric sanitizer products. Search fabric sanitizer at Clorox.com to learn more. When it counts, trust Clorox. Use as directed.
He gave me tons of supplements after testing as well. And there was more of like guidance around building meals, right? Getting, she looked at sort of my diet in general and was like, I can see opportunity for you to increase your vegetable intake, and maybe these colors, right? Like deep purples and a lot of beetroot was happening. My husband was like, no, but and also just like addressing my coffee intake, and like I'm actually drinking tea right now. You'd be proud.
Precisely.
But but what that I just fully I just love that, because that's what worked for me, and it makes a lot more sense. So can you talk a little bit about nutrient intake in
Absolutely.
some way?
Yeah, so we look at this on two levels. So the first thing is very, very important, in that without enough energy, none of the supplements are going to work. Okay, so the supplements won't work if you're just not eating enough food, if you're not getting enough energy, because we can see in food, food provides us like fuel that you'd put in a car, right? So something that is physically burnt down into a unit of energy. So we produce heat. We lose that. We basically burn down that fuel as pure energy.
Right.
But in that food, we also have all of these micronutrients that we actually need. They're like the little conductors. They actually do little jobs in the body. So they actually help us to produce that energy from that food. So we have a caloric requirement, all of us, that is different for everybody. So it's not just a number that we can pluck out of, that we just say, okay, everyone needs this amount of calories. I think we need a lot more than we think we need. I think women, we need to be eating a lot more food. We need a lot more food than we think we need.
Which is why, like, I still struggle every day to comprehend that.
Yeah. I mean, a hell of a lot of food. I mean, I just think that's society and culture that just does this to women. And I really do think that, it takes a lot of energy to ovulate. It takes a lot of energy to actually have a healthy cycle. And, for most women, what they think they should be eating, we usually just double that. I mean, we don't normally do that. But if I say to somebody, think about doubling that, what does that actually mean? That means actually it's a lot of energy, right? So we need to be making sure we're eating enough just to cover off our activity levels, and then a little bit more to encourage and to kind of reassure our hypothalamus that there's enough constant supply of energy there just for a little while. I never really ask anyone to just really eat loads of calories suddenly. I just do it really slowly. Just say, can you just eat a little bit more each day and just see how it goes? And we just monitor that. And then again, it's very different for everyone. I definitely will do some nutrient testing, some functional hormone testing. We'll look at a lot of, because if there's an adrenal dysfunction, we need certain types of nutrients. If there's a thyroid issue, we'll need certain types of nutrients. If there's a digestive issue, we might need a lot of other, we might need to actually just repair the lining of the gut first before we can absorb nutrients. And maybe that's just the focus. That's all we do. So it really is dependent on the individual. But, as for starters, we need adequate amounts of vitamin D for, it's really important for ovulation, actually, vitamin D. We don't think about that. We need choline, iron, vitamin A. We need energy production. We need B vitamins. We need, adrenal support. So we need vitamin C. We need magnesium. We need zinc to ovulate. All these things. Zinc nourishes our ovarian follicles. But I can just throw all of the nutrients basically out to you here, because basically we need everything to get the system up and running again. But I very much tailor that to, what do the tests show me? Where do we need to focus? Most of the time when we rebalance whatever is going on for you, then it will come. Whatever is going on for you, it will come. We may want to reduce inflammation in the body, whatever it is. But yeah.
I mean, that's just the value of getting individualized help and testing done is huge. I tried to do it by myself for the longest time, and then when I finally worked with an NTP and the things that she told me that she figured out, I was just like, there's no chance I would have figured that out by myself. So I potentially could have, and had a couple times, gotten recovery periods by myself by just like eating more food. and like radically reducing my exercise.
Yeah.
But the difference was when I was able to supplement. I mean, it came back quicker and more consistently, but I also felt better in so many other ways.
Yeah.
Or it was like recovering and then some a little bit.
Yeah. And, women, so a lot of women, they come to me, they don't have a period, but maybe it's like their hair's fallen out or their hair's dry and they're worried more about that. And like, so we actually end up coming to the period because, well, we actually really need to fix this before the hair's going to sort itself out. But, it's all of these things, the body, and the female hormone cycle is so wrapped up in every aspect of our health. It's so wrapped up in our beauty and our glowing skin and our brain chemistry and our stress response and how resilient we are to stress. You're going to feel way more anxious if you've got low estrogen and low progesterone. And your brain, you're going to feel really foggy headed if you don't have enough estrogen, which actually energizes the brain, so there is a lot of, there's so much here that will work again and will work beautifully again when we get you cycling again. And that's really exciting because then it's actually really relatively easy because then all your problems, like most of the time, the answer is just, let's just get you working the way your body wants to work.
Yeah. And there was something else that you said that I wanted to ask for maybe more clarification on. You mentioned leaky gut and all of the nutrients that we could be low in. And I get a lot of messages from people who are like, I'm doing the thing. I'm eating so much. I'm even gaining all this weight and I still have no period. And my experience as well is a little bit of that. And as you were speaking, I was like, oh, is this a good point? Which is, if you have leaky gut, you can eat as much food as you want, but you're leaking nutrients out and therefore not getting them and absorbing them. And so that's why it's not like all in or whatever is just not necessarily working for you. Or is it a little different?
So I guess I see exactly what you're saying. I guess it's not exactly that you're leaking nutrients out. It's more that when there is when the junctions of the gut lining are not tight, they should be nice and tight. So they are kind of, we call them leaky. It's a really, really it's a really, really bad term. It's a really non-scientific term. But that in itself, when we haven't broken our food molecules down enough, those big molecules, because the gut is leaky, will cross over into the bloodstream, and that sets up an immune response. And it's often, well, it's always an inflammatory. There's always some form of inflammation there, and that immune response is the problem. It does stop us from absorbing nutrients. It will talk really, really, I'd say, talk dirty to our hypothalamus. It'll send signals to the brain that'll affect the brain. It will cause a lot of damage in the sense that, we're not going to be able to, because those molecules aren't getting broken down. They're almost slipping through when they're too big. Do you see what I mean? So we can't actually extract those beautiful, really tiny nutrients that we need, and there's too much inflammation there. So the body is just fighting fires. It's just dealing with all of that inflammation in the gut, and it's not doing what it should be doing, which is breaking everything down beautifully, absorbing it, nice and easily, and consequently, we have issues. So yeah, it's very complicated actually. It's a complicated one to describe.
Well, I feel like that is a good explanation in general. So thank you.
Good. Good.
Okay. So if someone comes to you with HA, and I mean, what do you ask them? What do you do? And what do you see maybe commonalities or interesting things to share?
So some of the things I see are, like I mentioned, I would say hair loss, or like I find women are often worried about skin, hair and nails, and energy actually probably is the big one. So women are just really tired. They just can't do and think straight and think like they used to be able to. They may be going to the loo a lot. I see that a lot. You know, I don't know why I keep going. I literally drink something and then I need to go to the loo, you know. They have poor sleep often. And then we obviously will dig deeper. I do a lot of, so I start with a call. My process really is I start with a call where I usually take about 30 minutes. Actually, I do that call is entirely free and it's actually very important. So I do always give someone the time because it's important for them to trust me or to feel that I'm the right person for them. And it's just not going to work otherwise. I think you've got to have that bond. And it's also a really good time to ask a lot of questions. Actually, I do ask a lot in my initial phone call and around medical history, family health history. We need to understand that, I can get a sense of what genetically potentially what might be going on, medications, supplements, all that kind of stuff. That I get a vague picture, enough for me to evaluate whether or not we need to do any testing straight away. And then I will, if the client is open to it, then we'll do the testing. And then we'll have our sessions. The first session is usually a deep dive. It's a good hour plus, and we go through even more stuff. And I will take the time to explain to them what I feel is potentially going on. And that is such an important part of the process, because I think we just need to be heard and we need to understand what's happening in our body. And oftentimes I know that when you go to someone and they just say, okay, you just take this supplement, it's not enough. Like, I just think that understanding what may be going on in your body is a powerful part of your ability to solve it. And this is your body now, and it's your body for life. You work with a practitioner for a few months maybe, or weeks or whatever it is, but then you've got to have the tools to work with your body for the rest of your life. So I do think that really giving my ladies all of everything they need to go away and feel like they're not dependent on me is really important. After the testing, then I work with them to kind of rebalance their every part of their puzzle, because usually we have to. You can't really look at one thing in isolation. It doesn't really work. So that's my kind of process.
There isn't really like one. I mean, they always talk about HA as like a combination of a couple of things, always. And it's another reason why working with someone, I mean, shivers, even if you're not working with a practitioner, but you're working with like a therapist or a nutrition coach or someone, you can get answers. Whereas if you go off on your own and just try to you just quit exercise and eat everything, that's throwing everything at the wall, which is a valuable thing to do for someone, especially if you're you just want to get healthy tomorrow. Maybe you're a person who doesn't care a lot about answers and you just want results, or you're trying to get pregnant tomorrow. I get it. But to me personally, and many other people listening, having answers is why this happened to me in the first place. What was it that probably worked and helped is just so empowering. And a big part of why this podcast came along, right? I was able to work with someone very similar to you who could help me see what was happening in my body and just blow my mind and give me so much more respect for what is happening inside of my body. And you mentioned earlier, quite a bit ago now, just we need so many calories. It's so surprising. And of course, that so many calories is different for everybody, I suppose. But what is it that you think we struggle to understand about that? I know we've all been told 1,200 calories so often. Something I bring up a fair bit on the show is that I never ate that low. And so therefore, when I only ever heard them refer to a low calorie diet as being 1,200, I felt like I was eating a lot of calories because I was eating 1,700 or 1,800. And I was well, that's way more than 1,200. So I was very, very confused. And and sometimes I still am. And there's a lot of women, that's why I asked this question, and I just love talking about it, is there's a lot of women who are still just like, I feel like I'm eating a lot, but they're still actually not. So how much food do we need to eat and why?
I mean, okay, so you can't, I can't say we all need to eat the same amount of food. We're all different.
Yeah, we don't.
It depends. Okay, so it depends on your body, on your frame. Okay, your frame, your activity level, your stress level, your genetics, your, all sorts of inputs that we wouldn't even think about. But we need so much more than we've been led to believe. Women need a lot more food than they've been led to believe. And I think that is society, that's cultural. It's actually something that stems from certainly from a historical point of view, from the Victorian age, where women, I don't know, Victorian age in the UK, I guess, in the 19th century, where women were, if you look back in history and time, and you see images of women in art, they're actually really quite curvaceous and beautifully soft and quite large, actually. And something happened over the last couple of 100 years, or 100.5 years, where we're not allowed to have an appetite. A woman's appetite in the Victorian era was associated with something that was primal, evil, dirty. It was not something that we were designed. Sorry, this is going into a bit of a history lesson, but we weren't. It's something that it's so ingrained in us that we feel so guilty for having an appetite. Women feel so guilty for having an appetite, and it is so damaging to us biochemically, because if you think about what the female body does and what the female body is capable of doing, as in it's capable of growing another human being inside of it. Our requirements our nutrient requirements. I'm not talking about energy here necessarily. I'm talking about our nutrient requirements are often higher than a man's certainly over our life period. So that's hard. That's hard to get enough nutrients in often. And we need to really be eating nutrient-dense foods and enough foods and not feel guilty. And I often find that with women, certain women actually I work with unhappy relationships with food. So, where binge eating may come into the picture a little bit. That is when we actually release all of these rules and restrictions, and I can eat what I want. And I'll go into whether or not we should be eating just hamburgers and donuts and stuff all the time. But when we just eat what we feel, eat until we're satisfied, the rest takes care of itself. Our body's weight, we have a set point. We won't go, if we're getting enough nutrients, we won't actually overshoot. We have to trust our body that our body knows what it's doing. And actually denying our body is what that restriction causes, that loss of control, and then, binging, which can lead to restriction again. So it's just let your body eat. And that is the hardest thing. It's easy for me to say that. It's a hard piece to do. And it does, the mindset and the psychological support is so important. But you suddenly feel there's a big shift for women, I think, when we release that control. And one thing I don't advocate really is just eating loads and loads of junk food. It's just, you're going to feel crap. You're going to feel bloated. That you're not addressing necessarily the nutrient needs that your body wants. You may be that is a very pro-inflammatory diet, in itself. So you do need to be eating lots of lovely foods, but encouraging an abundance of lovely, healthy fats, avocados and olive oil and olives and beautiful fish and, organic meat and lovely, these are mainly kind of proteins and fats here. And let's not forget about those gorgeous, carbohydrates, lovely, brown rice and sweet potatoes and whatever it is. But we just need to fall back in love with food again. And see that color and not feel afraid to nourish ourselves. And I think when that happens, the magic happens,
I love that you just said the word magic. It actually feels that when you spend so long being dedicated to like creating these elaborate meals that are as low calorie as possible but as high volume as possible, and you like just the thought of like a coconut milk based curry with rice is just like it is
It's,
just like, oh, that would be lovely, that would be nice, like I'd love to have $1 million too, like it's just not going to happen. But then you're opened up to this idea that I could have that like every week if I wanted to have it,
yeah.
and it feels magical, and you're kind of just like, life is beautiful, and food I now understand the saying, like, food is the spice of life. Like, you're
But it
going
is.
about your life and you get
It
to
is.
enjoy these meals intermittently throughout, and it's a freaking great. And that's what I think of.
But it is there to be enjoyed. We've got to enjoy it. We have to. It's food is there to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
And there's a fun side of it. There's a fun side of this too. Yeah.
There was a really fun side. And as you were talking before your last point, this analogy came to mind, and I'm making it up on the spot, so it might absolutely suck. But it's like you have a vegetable patch and it's kind of small, and you're trying to grow vegetables, but it's like not deep enough, and it's not really growing anything because the roots don't have any space to grow, and the soil is kind of meh. It's not very good soil. And you try to fix that by maybe building it slightly deeper, and you fill it with some more of that shitty soil. Okay, the plant
Mm.
has a bit more room to grow, so it grows a little bit. But when you finally empty out all of that rubbish soil and you put in all of this good quality soil that has just tons of
Yeah.
minerals in it and all of this good stuff, you see the vegetables you're trying to grow, they shoot up and they are plentiful and they look beautiful, and you can really see the difference. And I really feel like it's the same thing with us and what we, it's not just about like the amount of room we give each other, but it's like the quality of the soil inside of us. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. And that is so, I think that is a brilliant analogy. I will use that with my clients. Thank you
Oh,
very
I love
much.
it. I've said this many times. I love analogies, and I wish that my job was just like people told me concepts and all I had to do was like come up with analogies for them.
It's brilliant.
So
But it is so true, an abundance of the wrong foods, it may bring your period back, but it will most likely bring your period back with severe PMS, hormone imbalances, right? So
yeah.
there's another side to this coin, which is we don't want to be balancing our hormones out really beautifully. And you need we need good quality, an abundance of good quality foods, right? And exactly like you're saying, is I actually have an allotment and you can't grow the same, you have to rest the soil. A lot of my allotment neighbors don't do this, but like we rest a patch of the soil, and we're resting one at the moment, and
Right.
replenishing it with compost and manure and all these amazing nitrates and magnesium and all these wonderful sulfur you need in the soil. You need to get all of those good nutrients back in. So it's totally the same.
Well, that's like the second part of the analogy, right? Don't overtill or overuse your soil.
Don't.
Make sure that you're allowing it to regenerate.
Yeah. Rotate your nutrients, variety in your diet.
Rotate your paddocks. Get
Yeah.
the cows off of that one into the other paddock. I can't thank you enough for your time. This was really interesting to me. I could nerd out forever on questions about like nutrient intake, but I personally am like, oh, I want to work with you now as a client. Like next time I get HA, where can people find you and more about you? And were there any other points you wanted to make or make sure that you shared?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's just as long as you got what you needed, really. I just really, I can't thank you enough for having me on, and I think I love what you're doing. And I was saying to you just before we started the show, I just cannot wait to see where this podcast goes, and how many women we can touch and just make them feel okay, and like this is okay, this is happening. And yeah, so I'm so excited for it. I'm so thrilled to have been here. So my website was a good place to get in contact with me if you want to book an appointment or just that initial free call, which I do with everybody. So it's really not a kind of, everyone deserves that much, you know, like you just get a free call and we'll talk about where you are and what you need. And that's www.hollydunn.co.uk. And I was previously on LinkedIn a lot, and I'm now just moving over onto Instagram. So I'm there at Holly Dunn Nutrition, and it's growing. I mean, I've literally been there for a few months, so it's a baby, but I will do more there. And so feel free to reach me there too. And I'm just thrilled to have been here, and I'm so passionate about this. You know, it's so much part of my story, and it continues to be. I get very emotional about it, actually. You know, when I'm talking to my partner about it all the time, I'm like, you know, we need our hormones. It's so important. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be doing it.
Yeah, me too. I'll be like, women need each other because no one else understands. Yeah, totally. Thank you. I'm going to put links to everything you mentioned in the show notes too, y'all. So go check it out. Go chat with Holly, and please let us know what you thought of this episode. If there was any questions left lingering and you were just like, guys, like you didn't cover XYZ, get in touch, let us know, and I don't know, we'll get Holly back on the show, or
totally. I'll be back.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have an amazing day.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the resculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering supplies and solutions for every industry, with 24/7 support and experienced staff at over 250 local branches. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.